Mandy Herring, who's going to talk to us today about our about research and fully online, how to specifically do that, how they're doing it now, and to give some perspective there. Well, also, and so Mandy, do you want to share your screen and introduce yourself further?
Sure. Um, let's see. Can everybody see that? See my slides?
Yes, we can see you.
Thanks, Renata. Yeah, thank you, Renata and the group for organizing this working group. I know that when I've been schedule has allowed me to jump in on these, I always pick up a few nuggets that are really interesting and that I feel like would be well applied to our program and what we're doing. And so I wanted to really try to focus on, I know everyone's needs are slightly different depending on your educational audience and sort of the backgrounds and levels of those students. So I want to start off today by talking about this program. I'm the PI of Harnessing the Data Revolution Data Science Core Award, and I want to just first briefly talk about how that project is organized, and then spend some time talking about our fully online 5-week summer program and how we navigated that in 2020 when it was all online and everyone in various states and places were in lockdown. And I think that at the end of the day, we were able to achieve a lot of our objectives through that program in spite of the fact that we were all in different locations. But for this audience in particular, I really want to focus on some of the things that we experienced and that we went through in setting up this program that we felt could be beneficial or helpful to people in other programs, so things that might translate to other programs and educational settings, I'll say. So let's see, here we go. Here's everyone who's involved in our program. So like I had on the first slide, I'm from Baylor University, an associate professor in statistics. And we have several other co-PIs as well who are both at Colorado School of Mines, which is the CSM, and at Baylor University. So we have a mix of statisticians, computer scientists, and my close colleague, Zahi Kath, is an environmental engineer. And so he kind of serves as our subject matter expert among the group. And then we have someone who does evaluation and administration for the project. Our project is titled MO Water, which stands for Modernizing Water and Wastewater Treatment through Data Science, Education, and Research. And I've really benefited from hearing just the wide variety and diversity of foci, I should say, that all these different projects have. And so our focus is on water and wastewater treatment research. And the reason that we targeted this particular area is that there is such a need for water, specifically getting it to the places where it's needed and in the quality that it's needed. So you can see in this graphic, these are just the number of months that out of the year that a region experiences water scarcity. And so you'll notice that, you know, Florida is highlighted and parts of Georgia are highlighted. So it's not just the arid Western US. It's not just the desert in Egypt. There's lots of places in the world that you might not necessarily think are short of water at some point during the year. And so one of the solutions to this that we started out with is that instead of having these large centralized facilities that treat water, what if instead you had a smaller decentralized facility that collected water where it's used to potentially then reuse it. And that might eliminate some of the water stress that some of these communities are facing. The issue with these decentralized treatments, and these are just a couple of fun pictures of our graduate students, one of the issues with these decentralized treatments is that the quality of water that comes into the facility is much more variable because it's not as highly mixed as you would have in a centralized facility. So you need to be able to monitor online constantly to mitigate risk to the system itself, because the system can go down if it's not monitored carefully, and of course to human health and environmental health. And we want to use data to do all of this in a more efficient way. And what we found is that the water and wastewater treatment industries have tons of data, just massive amounts of data that they just don't use because they don't know what to do with it. And so these seem like they would be able to provide us with a lot of tractable projects for undergraduate students to work on. So the overall purpose of our program is to get students interested early on in their undergraduate career in careers in data science. And so what we felt like in our programs at Colorado School of Mines and Baylor is that we're kind of missing some of these lower rungs in the ladder that would help you reach a career in data science. So for example, in statistics, you'll start out with a probability and statistics class, and those tend to be kind of boring. So we wanted classes that would inspire students to make their way up the ladder and take some of these more advanced courses. So we have first a class that's designed to fill that gap on the ladder. So it's prerequisite free, it's a sophomore level class, and we just take anyone who wants to come to teach them about data science. So we want to not present any barriers to students in terms of prerequisites, which means we get a very diverse set of students with lots of different backgrounds. And we try to make the entire class inquiry driven. Everything has real data sets and real problems that we introduce all the concepts of data, maybe not all the concepts of data science, but a lot of the concepts of data science through real data sets. And the second component of our project beyond the class is a data science fellows program. And that's what I'll focus the rest of the talk on. It's a 5-week paid summer research program, and we solicit projects from stakeholders. These are utilities, national labs, government organizations who have data related to water and wastewater treatment. And we want to get real problems with real data, and we pull that all in ahead of time. So this is a bit of a pre-REU experience for students. So they come in ideally in the summer after their freshman or sophomore years. And our goal ultimately for these students is to give them a real experience in solving a problem that's of interest, and to increase their subsequent participation in future summers in RUs or internships, to give them something they can put on, something concrete that they can put on their resume. So from here on out, I'm going to talk a little bit about some specific components of this program that may translate to things that you find in your own work, and hopefully this will be helpful in some senses. So one of the first challenges that we face is soliciting projects from stakeholders. And so when we scope out these problems, we want them to be tractable for beginner data scientists. I mean, it can't be really, really complicated, but they also need to be important and relevant. And we have to get both the data from the stakeholder, and we have to have some sort of time commitment, because it takes some time to meet with the stakeholders, identify them, email them, meet with them, and then talk to them about, you know, how much interaction we would hope to have from them over the course of the summer. And when we ask for data from these stakeholders, some of the things that we talk to them about are things like, we often will get data in Excel spreadsheets. And so we'll ask them to save these into CSV format, and to not do a ton of formatting in these Excel spreadsheets. You know, we don't want one sheet talking to another sheet, really complicated formulas. And so that's one of the things that we ask for. We ask that they avoid averaging or interpolating data. We just really want the raw observations. And then if we decide to average or interpolate, that's something that we'll have the students do. We often get two different types of data: process data, which is data monitored in an online setting from the facility, and then lab data, where they grab samples of water and take it back to the lab, and maybe you only have one measurement per day. So we often have data that are measured at different temporal frequencies. And so we talk to them about how we want to see each of those different types of data. We also want to know what's going on in the facility at the time, if there's anything unusual occurring in the facility during that time, and who can we contact about the data, so that if we have questions, we can ask them. So these are all things that we line up ahead of time. Another thing that we felt was going to be really important in an online setting is how to form teams. So before the students started the 5-week program, we administered a survey to them with these 10 questions. We had some other questions as well, but these are the 10 questions that we used to form teams. And so each student ranked themselves on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being I'm really strong, I've got high skills in this area, and 1 being I'm really weak in this area. And so you can see these are kind of grouped. So this first grouping is about programming in R, data analysis skills in general, and statistical methods. So these are kind of more technical skills. The next group is how comfortable are you speaking and presenting in front of others, writing, creativity, and I probably should have put 8 up here. How well do you get along with other people? And then the last group being how well do you organize yourself? How dependable are you? How resourceful are you? And so we had the students rank themselves on all of these things. And what I did was I took every single student and looked at how they ranked themselves and made sure that we had groups of 3 students in category, at least 1 who ranked themselves highly in one of these questions and 1 who ranked themselves here. And I think that what we found is that we avoided, for example, getting 2 really, really strong programmers in the same group, because every group was having to do programming, and we wanted to make sure that each group had someone who was very good at programming. Facilitating online interactions. So what are all the, the sort of software and online programs that we use to organize? I had never used Slack before, but we found that it worked very, very well in terms of communicating with the entire team. We had different channels for the 6 different projects, and so we assigned students to their channel. And then, of course, the faculty and graduate student TAs who are also involved could also participate in each of these channels. But it was where we would, instead of emailing, you know, it's just tough to email everything and expect students to see everything in an email. But here, it was like everything corresponding to this 5-week summer program was all posted in one central location. I thought that was really a nice thing. Of course, we use Zoom for all of our online interactions. We use Google Drive to distribute data and documents associated with the data. The students themselves used GitHub to organize and share their scripts. And we had weekly presentations that we recorded and then posted on YouTube so that one, the students had a resource to go back and look at what they've done, and also we can share these with our stakeholders. So one of the things that we were really concerned about in having an online program is how do we facilitate team building? And I don't know about you, but in transitioning a lot of teaching online, that was one of the things that I was really concerned about. And so, you know, if you just Google icebreaker questions, you're gonna get a wide range of icebreaker questions, not all of which you would want to ask a group of students. And so I came up with a list of questions that are here on the screen to kind of get students talking, but also focus that talk on something that's related to data science. And a lot of these questions we'll post in the chat, and then we'll have students reply in the chat. And then if there were a couple of responses that were interesting, then we would call those out and we would discuss it with those students, which I think facilitates a little bit, you know, that the Zoom interactions can be stilted and a little bit awkward. And so this allows you to spend a little bit of time making sure you're able to talk with each student over the course of the semester and call them out. And also have an informal mentoring. You know, one of the things that I do when I'm teaching in person is I go to class early, walk around the room and talk to students. And this activity takes the place of that a bit. We had very clearly communicated scheduling. So every week we would make a schedule of what we were doing each week, what were the overall goals, and then within each day, exactly what was expected. So if we were going to do a training session, to teach students, for example, how to use Lasso or how to use Ankova, then we would build that into the schedule. And this is a schedule for a couple of days near the end of the program. And so you see we have a weekly kickoff on the first day, and then each day after that we have a big group meeting. Everyone gets together. Each team sort of has a report out on what they plan to do for that day. It helps everybody get oriented, say hello, we're all awake, we're all on board, and helps kick off the day. Maintaining stakeholder engagement was one of the things that I was a little worried about. And so what we did was at the end of each week, we had a YouTube presentation from each team, and the stakeholders are welcome to join that. But of course, these are busy professional people. They may not have, that specific time blocked out on Friday afternoon where they can attend. So when we put when we recorded the presentations and post them on YouTube, I would actually post a link directly to where their specific project would start in the, say, 2-hour, it was usually about a 2-hour long video, but they don't want to have to search through that. So there's a way to find the specific location in the YouTube presentation that you can link to, where if you'll click that link, it goes and it starts at that minute-second timestamp. In the middle of the program, we also planned a 1-hour meeting between the stakeholder and each individual team. And that was really great. The students loved doing that. They wanted to do another stakeholder meeting, but we were being a little conservative, at least this first time through, with stakeholder time. But at the conclusion of the program, the stakeholders themselves said that they also would like to have more interaction with the student teams. And so in the future, we'll probably do more than one meeting with the stakeholders. And of course, sending shirts to them never hurts, having something concrete for them to hang on to and say, hey, we really appreciate your involvement in this project, in this program. If they have internships that are upcoming for upcoming summers, we can advertise those to all the students. So part of what they get out of the interaction with our program is the access to students that they might be able to use as internship employees or full-time permanent employees. And finally, the recommendation letter. One of the things that we did at the very end of the program was ask each student to write their own letter of recommendation. And because one of the things we want to do is see these students go on to do internships or other research programs in the future, or apply to graduate school. And so by doing this, it does a couple of things. One, it forces the students to think about how to communicate professionally and effectively. We can look back at these letters and see were the students accurate in their own assessments of themselves in terms of their contributions to the project. It helps the students really think critically about what did I contribute to my team and to spell that out. And so then ultimately it lets us very quickly and efficiently respond to requests for letters of recommendations, because if you have a big group of students, we had a total of 18, and we may have more than that in this upcoming summer. It's difficult to remember every single student and exactly what they did and how they contributed. And so this is a very easy way for the students to be very specific about what they contributed to their team, and then helps us to create an authentic letter of recommendation for whatever programs they're applying for. And so far this year, we received 13 letters from the students who participated last year. Of course, it's not required, but we strongly encourage it, especially if they're going to go on to do other things. And 5 of those students have already requested letters of recommendation, and I'm a slow writer. Instead of taking 2 hours, it only takes about 1 hour now for me to put a letter of recommendation because I've got some template to start from. I'm just going to very briefly talk a little bit about our feedback from the program. We asked these same 10 questions to the students at the end of the program, and these ones that are highlighted are those that have significant p-values, right? So that means there's been some significant change over the course of the program. So we saw that there was a significant increase in their comfort and experience level in programming with R, in presenting and speaking with each others, and in terms of their creativity. One of the interesting things that we saw was how it was when we asked them to rate what they believe they know about statistical methods, there's actually a negative change. And so our evaluator said that this tends to happen when students overestimate how much they know, and then they get into a program and they learn a lot, and they realize I didn't know as much as I think that I did. And that there's a whole big world out there of methods and data science and computer science that I've just not been exposed to yet. So I actually think that this is kind of a positive thing. It kind of opens up students' perspectives. Um, in terms of the teams that we created, I think the comments that some of the students left were really good. They really liked their teams. I like this one. It felt to me like we were working in the real world, where I imagine you're always working with other people in different locations and having video chats. That's exactly the experience that we wanted to create. And so I think that the method that we used to build teams was effective, and that we got students in groups that worked well together. I think having those teammates was really helpful overall in building community in the overall program. So I'm gonna end it there. I thanks for your attention. I'm happy to take questions, or if you have other icebreakers, put them in the chat. That would be great to see as well, because those are hard to come up with relevant questions to ask of students in icebreakers. So Renata, I think I'll turn it back to you.
Well, this has been very helpful. I think that there are going to be questions. We might be able to look at one today, but the structure of the program is very important. Everybody is thinking about how to do this with students. And so, if there are other people that have done icebreakers, or even I wrote down managing groups, what software you use, how you, evaluate the teams are really good. So there's one question in the chat um, for you. Do you introduce students to our programming in
In the
STA, CSS, or not required in any
Yeah.
groups
Yeah,
investigation?
that's a good question. So we use R exclusively in the Introduction to Data Science class. And that was really our large pool of students that we recruited from this year. And so of the 18 students that participated, 16 of them had taken the class. But we created what we called an R boot camp. So it's a 1 week self-guided tour of R that we made available to those students who had not had the Introduction to Data Science class. And so we also made sure to pair those students who hadn't taken the class and who were less familiar with R in a group with someone else who, one, was very good at R programming, and also sort of a patient explainer. Not everyone is a patient explainer. And so we made sure that those students were in a group where they would be a little bit more nurtured. And did any of the groups investigate the same research question? The answer there is no. We had six. We had 6 teams, and we had 6 unique research projects. And it's certainly, some of the data sets were really large, so we could have had multiple teams working on the same data set to investigate different questions. But this year we just had 6 different projects.
Thank you. Thank you. And so we're going to switch to Adam. Thank you, Mandy. And as we switch, if people have additional questions, please put them in the Etherpad under those notes. Mandy, if you are in there, you can respond to people. Or if you have additional suggestions, like she said, without icebreakers or any of these other things, you can put them in there as well.